certainly no slouch of a StarCraft player. His opponent in the southeast, the red Protoss player who just defeated Lambo, he is Exxon's Gerald. I realize Exxon picked up quite a few of these free agent players. They keeping food on the table for these guys. Big shout out to them. Been loving seeing them. I think they only just started picking up players over the last couple of months, right? I remember talking to the team owner. He's a really passionate StarCraft fan that's been supporting a lot of the foreign StarCraft community over the years. Great guy.
No, you're spot on. I feel like Team Alpha X and Exxon have really been picking up quite a few players, and a lot of very well-deserving players, like young kids that work hard. You know, I've got a certain Croatian Protoss in the market if they want to have him. No, just kidding. Just kidding, Goblin. I love you. Doors are wide open here. No, it's really good to see, obviously. We always love to see these guys have a team, have a home, and hopefully be happy with it. And Exxon even gave Gerald even gave a proper shout out to Exxon yesterday, making sure that they know how happy he is with them. And that's just good to see.
Yeah, I love to see it. Love to see these players come up. I think one of the biggest fears that we all had maybe a year or two ago was, you know, how many more new players are we going to have kind of rise up through the ranks and be able to compete against these top level guys? And it's happy to be wrong about those fears. It's happy. Yep. It's a happy feeling to see these players come up, be competitive. When I think about NA, I think about guys like Estrella, who is, I think, very quickly taking control in a big way of that scene. And I expect him to be, you know, one of the top guys there. And maybe we'll see Gerald up top being recognized as one of the best European Protosses by the time this year is over, if he continues to have good performances in the EPT and continuing to play well. I've gotten to cast a good amount of his games in the weekly cups over the last few months, and he's a very consistent player. He's been very fun to watch. And well, we're already seeing something a little bit out there from him to start this game, Roddy.
Yep, yesterday in game 1 on Pillars of Gold, he opened up with the proxy Stargate in the bottom right side of the map, just kind of trying to hit a smooth timing, but Lambo, his Zergling scouting was on point. This time he's like, you know what? You know where it went wrong? That Stargate was way too far away from the Zerg base. I'm gonna build it way closer. Gerald has done quite a few proxy Stargates this season. I believe this was the exact spot that he proxied the Stargate against Clem as well in the group stage, and then just kind of rallied a Void Ray into the main and won the game.
I love it.
Nate, this is going to hurt, man. This Oracle is going to show up so ridiculously quick. Oh my goodness, the Queens are leaving the main base as well. Never mind. When the Queen was leaving, it turned around.
This reminds me of that the Turbo Oracle build that everybody used to do back when Heart of the Swarm first came out, after they changed their mind about the Oracle not killing workers.
Natural.
It's out so fast. And how do you deal with this? I mean, the Oracle does take a lot of damage, but you know, you'd say, oh, 3 drones, but this is very early for those 3 drone kills, and it's not going to be the end of the harass by any means.
You're spot on, but that could have been so much worse for Elazer, right? Elazer, for some reason, had the feeling that something could be a bit off, and he put both Queens in the main base. First, he was sending one away. Second Oracle shows up before the Sport Run in the Natural's even done, and this Oracle, Nate, is going to have a lot more success. You can already see 6 drones going down. I'd say overall, this proxy Stargate build has worked out. Well done. And once again, I really feel this could have been a lot worse for Elazer. If he would have had 1 Queen in both bases, or that first Oracle would have gone for the natural, I think he loses even more drones than he's lost so far.
And look at the Wombo combo follow-up punch he wants to go for here. Resonating Glaives starts up. So he's thinking about bringing some Adepts into the mix. And, you know, Queen-based defenses become a little bit awkward sometimes with these builds, because if you get overwhelmed at any point and you're able to get a ton of Adepts onto the Queens, as weird as that sounds, if you can kill those Queens or do anything to them, then the Oracles become terrifying again. The fact that the Stargate is still there eventually could be annoying as well. I mean, like, it's so close. I keep thinking, like, he has to be done with it, right? But no, the Lings didn't find it. The Lings didn't find it. He's going to build a Phoenix. He's like, wait, why would I just not use this just because I built it on the other side of the map? Hell no. These 2 Adepts, though, getting grabbed is a bit unfortunate. One immediately dies. The second one barely manages to get back on the bus to go home.
I'm with you. It's pretty ridiculous that that Stargate is still powered and now a Phoenix actually comes out of it. And that is so nice because that is a Phoenix that I feel Gerald was not supposed to have access to after proxying that Stargate. That's not something we normally see. Definitely a missed opportunity by Elazer, and this Phoenix is going to be very annoying. It's going to take away any map vision that these overlords could potentially provide. And that would make Elazer's life a little bit easier as well in dealing with these oracles. Overall, I'd say a pretty good start for Gerald. The bad thing, though, Nate, is that he was supply blocked at 54 supply for quite some time. And I feel because of that, he just kind of randomly moved out those initial 2 adepts. They just got surrounded by Zerglings immediately. So what we looked at was pretty. But the things that were happening at home that we may not have been paying that much attention to, that actually wasn't that pretty. And I'm not sure if I'm really feeling this timing, though. I think it's a bit late.
There's so many roaches already coming out. There's a tremendous number of roaches that are being built. And they're not all there together just yet. The adepts shade over towards the main. He tries to put a stasis trap on the ramp to catch the roaches, but the roaches target fire it down, so he's not able to get that little siege up done. Now 5 drones have died up to 6+. He's managed to grab a queen as well on top of that. So if the adepts can continue to dance around and get that economic damage, he has 2 robotics facilities that are about to finish at home. So I can only assume the follow-up here of this supply being replaced is going to go into Immortals. Let's not forget, by the way, that's still a pylon by that Stargate, so he's able to reinforce this position too. Doesn't even need a warp prism. That proxy Stargate, I mean, if Elazer loses this game, that proxy Stargate's going to be something that he thinks about for a very long time, as that next wave of adepts that was warped in outside of his base make it into the main. Just a spine crawler and a queen, not target firing down the drones that are put on hold position to block the pathing, so not getting maybe as many worker kills as he was hoping to, but starts to micro the ones inside the third. And 14 drone kills. Okay, he's got a nice worker lead. He's going even higher up into the natural Rotterdam. And we have 2 immortals that are finishing up. Blink is almost done. He's getting a robo bay. Gerald's done a really good job of macroing behind this attack.
Yep, and now the oracles sweep in one more time. They will find 4 more additional drone kills as well. It's ridiculous. He wiped in those last 6 or 7 adepts from that proxy Stargate that's been right next to Elazer's main base for the entirety of this game. It definitely feels like a bit of a nervous start. I think the initial start of the adepts could have been a bit better, but in the end, Gerald definitely got a lot of value out of it. He needs to spend his money, though, Nate. That's what I'm a bit worried about. Gerald is sitting at 1,200 minerals. Imagine if he would have been spending that money, but 3 immortals should be enough, right?
It should be. He doesn't have the warp in, apparently, to block the natural entrance. He's going to warp in stalkers and get probes fighting roaches, which is a situation you never really want to be in. He does... I was going to say, he got so much economic damage done, but you know the head of the Hydra when it comes to the Zerg players, you kill those drones and then double the amount comes out. There's still 2 roaches picking away at the probes in the main base with very low hit points. He does clear those up. And you know what, Kevin? I would love to see him just, okay, yeah, he's going to warp in 3 adepts here, but when he sees his hatchery, just start chrono boosting and void ray and get it canceled. Just build the void ray with the proxy Stargate and just prismatic align. It's like, okay, I guess I have to restart this base.
I cannot believe. Okay, the roaches will finally find the Stargate, and Elazer going to be like, what? I think there's a small smile on his face as well. I can't exactly see that. He's like, that's where it was all along. As the adepts have shaded into the natural and once again find decent damage. I mean, Nate, oh my goodness, this is a 9-minute game and 48 drones have been killed. Are you kidding me?
It's been a bloodbath, to say the least. And I gotta say, I mean, Gerald has, outside of a little bit of a fumble, a very small fumble on the roaches over in the natural that got a little bit awkward, he's been able to put together a pretty beefy force, right? The Hive is on the way, the Hydralisk Den is on the way, but none of those things are ready to go. And we don't actually even have Baneling speed either, so if you wanted to try to use Banelings, that wouldn't really be a very good choice. So he's got to deal with a ton of Stalkers, a ton of Immortals, and Disruptors inside his own base now. I'm not really sure how he stops this army with just Ling Roach.
Why didn't he fire? I feel like that could have been a good shot. No, go for the Ravages. Okay, the Ravages do survive. There is another Disruptor in the mix, though. I mean, Gerald has done so much economic damage. This is a scary play. That is a mess. Nova.
Get the air horns out.
I think that's going to do it for game 1. Elazer really doesn't have much left besides this. There are 4 Immortals in the backline of this army. What a start for Gerald.
Damn, Gerald with the game 1 dub. Oh my goodness. You know, that's I feel like every Protoss player watching this game happen is like, every time I try to proxy, they always just kill it. As soon as I halfway through my first Oracle, there's 6 lings around it, and these pros let it sit there and build 2 Oracles, a Phoenix, warp in the Adepts for that big attack on the 3rd, and then even to the very bitter end, just providing that spot for those last 3 Adepts to get into the natural before that big move out happened. And that's just that was a very fun game to watch. Rotterdam is all I'm gonna sum it up with.
Yeah, if you can kill 48 drones in a 9-minute game, you've clearly done something right, and Gerald did a lot of things right in that game. And then the funny thing is, it wasn't even all flawless, but who really cares? He probably just looked at the priorities. He's like, all right, I can either make sure that everything is super smooth at home and I hit all my transitions, or I'm getting distracted. He's like, don't change the players. Gerald is saying he wants to see Indy versus Roddy. Well, I saw Indy have a marvelous run in the EPT Weekly last Monday. He beat like Cass, Braddock, and Creed, I think. I was like, all right, Indy is really... And took a map of Hero Marine. I was like, Indy's on fire. So, no, let's not do that. But yeah, very well done by Gerald. Obviously a bit silly. Like, Elazer should never let that Stargate be alive for as long as this is. I mean, maybe just one of these builds is like, all right, forget about it if you're Elazer, reset the mind, and let's just make sure that we check those corners, especially close to my base.
So as we go into the next game now, Marine Lord's words are kind of echoing in my mind, right? When you gamble against a gambler, you can really put them on tilt. You can really get them, pissed off, right? Yeah. So I'm like, is this one of those things where he's going to be able to get a bit of momentum off of that type of play? Because I feel like if you're Elazer, you've got to have that in the back of your mind. Like, oh, it should have been so easy to deny that. We'll have to see. Spawning in the top right position of Everdream is the red Protoss player. Representing Exxon, he is Gerald.
And in the bottom left side, look at the main base of the man who made it to the semi-finals of the global finals in 2016 and made the playoffs again in 2017. It is Esl Elazer.
Nice day of StarCraft. Some really good games. I have to say, I've been enjoying almost all the maps that we've had so far. It's been entertaining. Maybe it's not quite the same as just a bunch of 2-axes versus Zerg. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like watching Gerald, though, because he does make those risks, right? Even if he's maybe not the player that everybody is picking to win, I think part of the ability for him to still win anyway comes from him just doing what he believes is going to be, the best move, instead of, kind of trying to just rely on, oh, well, I can't get away with anything weird against Elazer. He's too good. I'm going to play boring standard and get rolled over and, knocked out 3-0. But he started this series with some bite, with a little spice.
I have the feeling that Elazer is going to be the one being feisty or spicy over here, though. This is a map where we've seen quite a few Link Floods. A couple of Zerg players seem to think that a Link Flood can get the job done here if you can just catch the first Adept. Everybody knows that Protoss players love to go for the 3-gate, 4-gate Resonating Glaive Adept build over here on Everdream. And maybe Elazer is going to do something very wild in the beginning of this game. Keep a close eye on it, Nate. Because he took his gas like a couple seconds quicker than they normally take it. Not too many, but just a few. And that leaves me already a little bit worried. But he's actually only mining of it with 2 drones right now. Actually, he's not mining any gas anymore at all. That's kind of weird. Okay, never mind. So I'm wrong, guys. I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, you might not necessarily be wrong. He may have just seen something or decided at the last minute that wasn't the direction he wanted to go in. Because you would think with that gas timing, at the very least, he would try to squeeze out ling speed before he pulled, just 1 drone on it. But so he's decided to ramp up a little bit more on the economic side of things. And Gerald, well, he's just getting that straight into Twilight Council. No Stargate opening this game, as the Overlord will be pushed back to its what would we call this? Just the little free rent apartment space right outside the Protoss base right there.
I think Zombie Grub calls it the pervert pillar.
Yes, well, I think that was coined from pig. Is where the etymology of that one.
Of course, it's from pig. Everything that's sexual comes out of pig.
Yeah, for all the memes and jokes that we make about pig, I only actually got to see one of those. Because like I watch his stream every now and again, but I hadn't actually seen him do the full pig thing, and I finally got to see that like 2 weeks ago, and my mind melted. It's incredible. That man has a very dirty mind, but
He really does. And that's him holding back as well. Like, imagine if he's not. I'm gonna see
No.
Pick Unleashed.
well, I've been at the bar with him, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen him do it in front of other people before.
Pick stream is actually absolutely awesome, guys. If you ever have the chance to catch it, highly recommend it. Not only a great player, but it's very, very funny. Well, that first adept of Gerald is going to get picked off. I have the feeling there was one more thing I want to say about that first game. I mean, what I think was really telling is that Stargate nade was so close that even though the first Oracle didn't really find the success it was looking for, the second Oracle still showed up in the natural before the Sport Crawler was done. I mean, that's when you know the Stargate was really close.
Yeah, that's you know, it's those types of builds are always so weird too, because you can also not do as much as you're hoping, right? Like the 2 queens were just right there, right? You know, like he had some feeling that he needed to have both of them in the main at that exact moment, and the first Oracle didn't get quite as much damage as he might have been hoping. But some lings are going to come out now as the lair starts up, but we've got the Prism, we've got the Dank Shrine, so presumably there'll be a DT kind of chuck towards that third, but he'll probably pull back if he doesn't get the opportunity to kill anything. And with the Spore, he really shouldn't, right?
Well, there are no Zerglings. I mean, 3 queens are not going to beat 4 Dark Templars. The War Prism gets a little ahead of the party. The Zergling count, I don't think it's high enough here. Well, in the end, it is. But at the same time, Elazer is counterattacking. Gerald needs to keep the door shut at home. And he needs Warping. There are so many Zerglings out. This is actually really cool by Elazer. This worked out in such a big way for him. I was a bit worried that all of the Zerglings were going to go to the other side of the map, which is what he's doing right now. But Nate, this is absolutely amazing. He killed the Stalker, forced a defensive warp in, and picked off a Dark Templar as well. Has taken absolutely 0 economic damage at home.
And he got Gerald to build 2 more Dark Templar back at his own base for the defense, and because he wanted to block it with the wall so that the Stalker would be safe. And now he's going to try to use the DTs to protect the third that he wants to take. There's still a tremendous number of Zerglings, though. I don't even think the DTs, you don't even know that all of them could actually clean these up. Okay, good dropping on the way there. He'll at least one-shot a few of them, but it's quite scary to try to take your third in this situation. He doesn't really have an army, so to speak.
This is going to be a funny fight. At first, I was really worried, but I think actually an Archon, a Prism, and 4 Dark Templars, that should be a bit of a meat grinder. So I was like, you know what? I'm done with the DTs. They haven't done anything for me. So I'm going to morph all of them into Archons. Elazer is going to get a scout in the main base. Now, even though that was perfect defense by Elazer, it is worth mentioning that he obviously produced a lot of Zerglings to get that done. So economically, it wasn't actually that pretty. But right now, Elazer is feeling safe, and he's like, you know what? I have the feeling that you're going to be at home for a little while. I can start squeezing out drones. Made a big round of drones, but he's now going back into roaches again.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess he's still concerned about the possibility because we've seen adepts in a decent number of them in that last game, that he's thinking about the possibility of that as a follow-up, maybe. I don't know that he's suddenly going to be able to go kill this third base, though, just off of those roaches. So he's going to take this expansion and maybe just try to use that to hold the Archon drop back. But a couple of sloppy moves, though, right? He lost the 1 DT at that third base. The Prism has very low hit points now, so it's a big target. And the only thing that's nice, though, is he is starting to clean up some of these units that are just out on the map. Looked like he was trying to morph an Overseer by the third again, and the Overlords will find, or excuse me, the Archons will find this Overlord.
I don't think it was an Overlord. I think it was a Dropalord. As we see another Dropalord being morphed right now where the Zerglings are running around. But very nice for Gerald to be aware of that, because if your opponent tries that once, they're very likely to try that again. The funny thing is, it's yeah, it's very slow.
Oof. That hurts a little bit. Now, what's interesting, right? We talked about the follow-up to the last game when he was doing all of the adept shenanigans before the big push. And he built 2 robos while he moved out all those adepts. But in this game, we're seeing him go straight to the Colossus. We've got one about to pop. He has extended thermal lance on the way. So he's playing with a bit more of a, I don't know. I always feel like the Colossus is going to be a bit more fragile of a target because of how big it is, how big of a target it is compared to going for those Immortals off 2 robos. But this is a lot of roaches working away at the wall. The Stalkers are riding the struggle bus on this defense a little bit. And Big Daddy Colossus does not have his fully fledged laser beams yet either.
Nope. I mean, in the end, at least Gerald keeps all of his gateways alive, so I think that's the most important thing. Elazer does find this Nexus that doesn't have a lot of HP, so it's going to go down immediately. I'm a little bit concerned for Elazer, though, because right now it's like, okay, Roaches and Ravagers, they can do pretty all right. But soon there will be a couple of Disruptors in the mix. There might be a couple of Immortals as well. Elazer is going to try to run by one more time, but Gerald just keeps warping in Stalkers. I'm actually liking where Gerald is heading in this game. And I feel that Elazer really needs to start getting like a couple of W's on the board. Otherwise, this game is going to get bad news for him as well.
Yeah, he's done a really good job, by the way, of just catching these units on the map with the Prism. He denied the Banelings that were morphing outside, and he's doing it again right here. And what are you gonna do? You're gonna sit here and just morph Banelings in front of Archons? If any, you almost want these to finish if you're Gerald, so you can just deny him the extra resources. But he has a massive spread going on to this fourth base. Just the one Colossus, doesn't have the Prism to pull it back, so he's stutter stepping everything back as he goes towards this cliff. 2 Disruptors are out now, and the second Colossus is going to approach to help with this army. I'm not sure he's going to be able to save this fourth base, but this army does look terrifying, Roddy. Banelings crashing into Stalkers. I do think you still need to split them a little bit, even with that damage nerf.
I have the feeling one of these Disruptors did not fire. I mean, this is completely fell apart for Gerald right now. That Prism not being there, not his entire army not being in the same place, I actually really feel like opened the door for Elazer to just go for it. And like I said, Elazer
no Overseer here?
Don't see one.
No.
A couple of Dark Tempest could be nice. Oh, that's close. That
Trying
Nexus
to think of
might
what
live.
you do here. Yeah, we see. He saves it. It's just Roaches being built. He's just Roaches. He's getting 6 Ravagers from it. He's gonna add Burrow, but I think you had a really good point that you were getting to though about the scaling of the tech with these armies as Disruptors and Colossi get out in good numbers versus just Lings and Roaches.
Go back.
But he lost a lot of those powerful, expensive units on that defense. And the Disruptors are really like, you know, that's the big cash money play that you want to make in these types of situations. Those Stalkers also, you know, they don't take as much damage from the Banelings, but they certainly didn't need to tank every single Baneling while they were all maximum clumped. And yeah, this army just doesn't have enough meat in it to defend the Roach Ravager follow-up. The only thing my brain can think about when I look at this is I'm like, I don't see an Overseer. I don't know if Desperation DTs are the play, but I think now it might be a little too late to try and make that call even now.
Yeah, Gerald just lost a lot of very important units that he cannot easily replace. 3 Colossi have gone down, 2 Disruptors have gone down, all of the Archons have gone down as well. The Observer even falls to a Corrosive Bile. A couple of Stalkers getting blown up by the Purification Nova as well to just make things even worse. And even though I felt Gerald was in a pretty playable position, Elazer just makes a little bit of Elazer magic happen. Maxes out on Roaches, runs to the other side of the map, and he's like, cool, your Prism is cancelling my Banelings. I don't care. That means you're missing a Prism, you're missing 2 Archons. Let's take the fight. And Gerald just wasn't ready to take a game-deciding fight like that.
No. It's hard, right? You have such a wide angle on that base, and that's the risk in taking it, right? It's also very close to the center of the map, so it's easier for Elazer to bring his army over there. And now I have to ask myself, I'm like, okay, well, he's going to try to get some Disruptors out, but the Hive is coming. Where's the answer going to be for Vipers if he just tries to abduct, you know, the Colossi straight into the Ravagers or the Prism, what have you? That's where my concern is. Even if he gets the greatest Disruptor shots of all time, he's going to need to do it like 3 fights in a row without losing anything to get back in this game, I feel.
Yep, I mean, Elazer's up to 5 bases now. He's even taking a 6th base in the bottom side of the map. It's going to be very... What is...
So you had a cheeky burrowed Ling that can see the whole army outside the natural. The Roaches and Ravagers are going to push the 3rd base, but he actually had a burrowed Ling there.
He unburrowed on top of the Colossus, and there is one good Purification Nova, but I feel like this game is not really a fair fight anymore. Even though Elazer is indeed still being aggressive without Overseers, Ned, you really made a good point. A couple of DTs really would have made Gerald's life a little bit easier, not once, but multiple times. It's almost that he forgot about the fact that he opened up with a Dark Shrine in this game.
Yeah. And it's just hard, too, because as good as the Disruptors can be, at some point, you're like, against a low-tech army, if he... Oh, well, that's a beautiful hit on the Banelings, but still not enough. There's a lot of Banelings here. And he has that +2 melee, but... Yeah. Well, DTs are on the counterattack, but... Yeah. I mean, he's lost everything in the meantime, right? Like,
no, I mean, that's a cool play.
Shoot Roaches still, though.
It's actually funny to see that Elazer didn't have a sport role in his sport base, his fifth base, and his sixth base. I mean, that's really some proper greedy play coming out of Elazer. But all of it is fine. He can get away with it because he's done so much damage and has done a really good job in keeping Gerald at 3 bases. But yeah, that also makes you feel, Nate, that there's 1 or 2 Dark Templars, not only defensively when the big fight was happening, because I feel everything that's happening in the last minute of this game, I don't think it really matters that much anymore. Unless Gerald can make some magic happen with the army that he has right here, right now. We need 2 massive Novas.
Oh, there's
that's
one.
A start. That's a start.
Oh my God. Okay, well he got a pretty tremendous amount of damage done there. Throws out another Nova, blinks back. He's taking out the Ravager count, which is that. Those are the really important units here. I do believe we have some Vipers on the map, but Gerald, he's got. I mean, we talk about inflated army supply. There's a lot of Roaches and Banelings. Okay, well, that's one way to die. Getting dragged through. The Disruptor shots are still pretty sick, but without the power units now to deal with the Banelings. I'm not really sure. Well, he's got more DTs coming in. The Banelings are gone. Still a lot of Stalkers. He's trying to make it happen.
Yep, and there's a little bit of army
about it like he might pull it off, but I'm getting some weird vibes.
Yeah, there is a little bit of army supply on the other side of the map as well. The problem is Gerald's economy is in shambles, so you really can't wipe in a lot of additional units, and it feels that every single product unit that disappears will not make a reappearance. It's 29 workers against 83. How can this be close? It shouldn't be close, and I don't think it's going to be close. So I love the Blinding Cloud, and Nate, I think that's a few too many Roaches.
Now, he killed the Overseer and warped in a few more DTs, but the Stalkers on their own gonna have a hard time getting it done, and naturally the follow-up to that is more Overseers. GG, well played. Elazer is gonna tie things up, and yeah, it's turning into a banger of a best of 5 here, Rotterdam.
Yeah, some beastly macro in the mid game there by Elazer, going from 60 to 80 drones, and then he just went through it with the Roaches and pretty much got the W right there. And then we're gonna head to a very quick break. After that, we'll be back with game 3 between Gerald and Elazer.
Welcome back. We hope that you've had a moment to go grab yourself a refreshing beverage or a snack, whatever it is that you need to get through the day, because we are, I think we're in for a pretty crazy day of games here, Rotterdam. We've got a lot of StarCraft. This has been a lot of StarCraft. I see you appear to be well equipped over there. Going for the sip, ladies and gentlemen, that is the look of a refreshed StarCraft 2 commentator.
I mean, this is what I need, Nate. When I know I've got 6 best of 5s, I feel like we need to have a couple cans. And I'm happy to see... Well, I know that you're equipped, but I'm happy to see myself being equipped as well. Last week, I was actually out of Monster for a day, and it was terrible. But none of those worries. We'll talk more a little bit about Game 2, actually, after we introduce these nerds, because we had a fun discussion in the break. In the bottom left side, look at the main base of the Polish Protoss. He is trying to get his all-time personal best finish in one of these Premier tournaments. It is Gerald.
Slugging it out with one of Europeans' best. We've got in the Northeast, the blue Zerg player. He is Elazer.
So we had a fun little chat in the break. Obviously, the viewers couldn't really hear that, but we were going over a couple of the key things that happened there on Everdream. It actually felt that despite the fact that Gerald lost that Dark Templar in the beginning, and he was like, okay, that's not really the start he's looking for, it wasn't going that bad because Elazer made so many Zerglings, and it was pretty clear that he was hoping for some proper damage somewhere. See if Gerald would fall apart, if he would slip up, make a mistake. But none of that was happening. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I kind of actually like where this game is going for Gerald. You know, he stopped multiple attempts at Dropper Lords as well. He found those morphing Banelings over and over again. It's just he wasn't ready. When Elazer sent his massive army through the middle of the map, he wasn't ready. And I think the most telling thing was the Colossus positioning. The Stalkers just stood there and the Colossus was kind of standing in the front line. And that is the universal sign of a Protoss player who is not ready to battle, because Colossus are obviously always supposed to be way in the back line of an army. And I truly felt that was a bit of a shame, because I think that could have been a much closer game than what it turned out to be, even though the ending was exciting.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it still was a surprisingly close match. But yeah, my first thoughts when I saw, like, I just, you know, actually I learned this from watching your stream, Kevin, is that if there's no Overseer with the Zerg army, and I actually like to do this myself when I play Protoss, if you don't see the Overseer and you slam down a couple DTs, the worst case scenario is they don't kill anything, but your opponent kind of steps back, right? If they don't have the Overseer, it gives you a little bit of time to get maybe that next Colossus out, or get them situated in a place where they need to be. Maybe a shield battery or two could be warped in there at the same time, but it's tricky, right? You know, if you can land those disruptor hits, they're obviously very cost effective, but then you're like, if you had an Immortal or two a little bit earlier to anchor against that many roaches, well, I kind of like that too, but I can't fault him for wanting to use the disruptors. There's, you know, we have obviously seen many games won by sick disruptor plays, so I'm never gonna hate on the disruptor. It's a fun unit to watch. It's just, it's not always gonna be a good anchor to an army.
Yeah, I would have loved to see him squeeze in one Immortal before going to those Disruptors. Having like some constant power damage on those Roaches, I feel like this is very nice. Stalkers and Colossus are not bad against Roaches, especially if the positioning is good. Obviously, you have way more micro potential in that Protoss army than you have as a Zerg with Roaches, but I feel like having one Immortal as the back line, as an anchor in your army there is kind of sweet. But overall, I just felt that that game didn't have to play out the way it did. Now, of course, you can say that about every single StarCraft 2 game, but I felt that was supposed to get really exciting. And even though it may have looked a bit one-sided, because all of a sudden Elazer was 70 supply up, won the fight, took down the fourth base, Elazer was definitely cutting a couple of corners, because there was no Spore Crawler at the fourth base, there was no Spore Crawler at the fifth, and there was no Spore Crawler at the sixth. So imagine he makes that big Roach attack. Gerald has a counterattack set up, right? And the DT does sneak into a middle line or two, and he warps in defensive DTs. Then all of a sudden, instead of Elazer steamrolling a Stalker army, Elazer has to disengage, and he's taking economic damage at home. It really could have been so different.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. It felt like we kind of got a glimpse into what it could be. And I mean, at the same time, that also kind of plays into a bit of the narrative that we've been discussing, right? Gerald is the up and coming player. He's the guy that's the underdog in this series. It's possible that, you know, this is just one of those lessons that you're going to have to learn on your way up about, the ways that you can try to deal with these types of attacks. And if he looks back on that game, I'm sure he's going to realize that there were a good number of opportunities. You know what is interesting, Kevin? These oracles coming and putting on the pressure. The queens are like, oh, we're going to bully you away. But no, he kills one of the queens. He's going for number 2, and he's building a 4th oracle behind this. Oh, losing one really sucks, but.
Yep, losing one sucks, but at least he finally got it. I was actually afraid he was going to lose it or not get that queen. But yeah, this is something that Gerald spoke about yesterday in the interview. He's a big fan of these oracle builds. Just make 4 or 5 of them. And obviously they're nice in finding damage, getting drone kills, getting a couple of queen kills as well. I think the main purpose of these oracles is to make it difficult for Elazer to go up to 4 bases. Now, can Gerald still accomplish that after losing an oracle and spending as much energy as he did? Well, Nate, we're about to find out.
Yeah, okay. The Overlord gets cleared out at the natural, so the vision becomes a premium for Elazer. Lings come over to the 3rd base. We've got a tucked-in Stalker and Sentry, but you know what the other great thing about Oracles, Rotterdam? They are phenomenal at killing Lings. So if you're trying to make those big Ling run-by plays work or trying to get the cancels on the 3rd, it's just not really a door that's going to open itself up to you very easily. And another Oracle finishes, by the way. So Elazer's also got to be scratching his head a bit at this. He's like, okay, that's a lot of Oracles. Am I going to have to build Hydralisk? The Hydralisk then is on the way. We got Banelings +1, but he gets some kills on some valuable units. I was worried the Sentry was going to die there.
No, but I love this for Elazer, Nate, because Elazer is not looking for like insane damage here. Obviously, getting the Sentry or something is cool, but what Elazer is accomplishing is that he's keeping the Oracles at home, and the Oracles can easily cancel a 4th base that's on like 200, 300, 400 HP. It's not going to kill a hatchery anymore. That's finished up. And the main purpose of these Oracles is to deny this base from going up as quickly as it did. I am absolutely loving the way that Elazer is playing this so far. It may seem standard and straightforward, but it's honestly brilliant against the way that Gerald is playing. And I think Gerald is in some pretty serious trouble here.
14 Hydralisks are coming out, and they're ramping that up with another 4 on the tail end of it. Stalkers are pretty bold walking out in the middle of the map without blink to kill Overlords, but the Ling count, I guess, isn't something he's concerned about since he has those Oracles. But you make a great point. I mean, even that kind of just leads us back to, well, he can't attack with the Oracles if they're busy chaperoning those Stalkers to make sure that they don't stand too close to each other on the dance floor.
You want to hear something crazy, Nate? Gerald made 5 Oracles, right? 5. Take a look at the main base of Elazer. Elazer's like, no, I will make sure that those Oracles are busy, and I will make sure my queens are in the right position. He didn't even make a Spore Crawler against the Protoss with 5 Oracles. But you know what? They never even got close to the main base. So this was obviously calculated, and Elazer was confident he could get away with it. This is honestly a game where I'm very impressed by Elazer, who I in general consider to be a player of extremes. In the previous game, he made a lot of units on, I want to say, some questionable moments. I was like, I'm not sure if this is really helping you. This game, he's like, nope, I know exactly what I want to do, and he got so much value out of 16 to 18 Lings. And at this point, Gerald is like, wait a minute, I feel like I need to accomplish something here because I didn't slow you down, and it feels like you've got a good economy, but he already has the units out right now that he needs from that 78 drone economy. This is a beautiful game by Elazer. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, well, he wanted to try and do something, as you said, but he sees that many Lings, that many Hydras. I don't know what universe Stalkers are still able to just kill whole entire armies on their own, but it ain't this one. For sure, he's gonna need those double pumping Colossi. It's still scary to have all those units out on the map. Like, that's a large amount of Stalkers just have skulking around, and he does have some stasis wards set on the gold base that he's trying to take, the gold gas base, excuse me. And I do like the stasis traps being set out, but, you know, random Lings can trigger those and steal them. You have a Bane run by headed for the 3rd base mineral line, which is pretty well choked off, thankfully.
Yep. And obviously, it's been spotted as well by the Prism. I think Elazer is going to see if he can make something happen with his Hydras before Colossi are out, but there is already one Colossus out, even though Thermal Lens isn't done yet. Now, if these rocks go down, though, that could still be a bit problematic because you don't really want to open the doors to your natural. As you can see that +2 is on the way as well for the Banes. For all the compliments I gave Elazer, I gotta say, I like that Gerald wasn't stubborn. Like, he truly wanted to get either some economic damage done or slow down that 4th base, put on some serious pressure. But he's like, well, I'm moving out with my Stalkers, and you've got that much. I don't think I can do much here. And then he wasn't stubborn and still forced his way on creep. He's like, no, you know what? I'm going to try to actually just expand myself, get my army up. And even though my army isn't that good right now, if I just buy enough time, my army will get a lot better. And that's also a very mature decision, I think, by Gerald.
Yeah, good little zealot attack on the third, pulling him apart a little bit. There's still some general concerns, though. I mean, when I think about lurkers in ZVP, I think about the range of the Colossus being less than that when they get that hive upgrade. And that makes me very, very nervous, Rotterdam, because dealing with that lurker play, if the Zerg executes and controls well, is terrifying. And at the same time, we have Vipers on the field now, too, I believe. So those are going to increase the amount of difficulty of kind of getting those Colossi in the position that they need to be to clear out the meat shield so that the rest of this army can actually try to kill those lurkers.
Yep, and obviously there are no disruptors yet, right? And it feels that whenever you have disruptors, then maybe you can deal with lurkers. Right now, I feel like this is going to be pretty difficult. Banelings are coming in from multiple angles. At least the first wave is shut down. There is a dropper lord heading towards the natural as well, but Gerald is expecting it. Let's see if he's actually paying attention, though. The answer is yes.
Oh, well, I mean, even for Banelings, if he had clicked to unload them there, I think he could have still gotten some damage in with the +2, but the lurkers wedge themselves onto that little choke point underneath the natural. Now, 2 of them were stasis trapped. 1 of them is burrowed and revealed very close to the ramp and is kind of getting worked away at, but there's still a lot of them there. Now, the rest of the army isn't quite in this position. Goes to the feedback on the Vipers. He's going to blink. He has the revelation on the lurkers to reveal most of them. Some of them are still invisible, though. And, well, Stalkers take a lot of damage from those lurkers. There's the next revelation. Clearing these out would be absolutely massive, but he is going to take some heavy losses in doing so.
I mean, pretty sick though that Gerald just cleaned all of that up while never taking any crucial economic damage. 7 probes went down somewhere. There are still Zerglings being annoying at this base at 6 o'clock, or what used to be a base, but well done. At least he survived the first storm. Now, obviously,
Can't believe he survived that.
Yeah, the next attack there will be adaptive talents though, so I think the lurkers will have a little more flexibility. I think that stasis trap really helped, and then Elazer was like, ugh, wait a minute, I'm like kind of clumped up here, like do I really want to stick around? What if he does have storm? What if he fires a Nova forward? Well, I mean, yesterday Gerald on this game, we said it during the cast, like it feels like he's channeling his inner Showtime, and then in the interview he's like, I just tried to be like Showtime, and it kind of feels like he's doing that again. Maybe he's like, you know what? I'm just going to defend multiple angles and hope that I can just defend everywhere at once.
He's going to wedge himself back into that same spot that he went for originally. And very dangerous. Of course, he's picking off the cannons, the batteries, the pylons that have put in place here to try and hold this spot down. Now, if the Hydra step too far forward, the lurkers are going to be a little bit exposed. So he's able to clean some of them up off the tail end. The spread on the army is not perfect because it's a choke point, but then the disruptor shot comes in. I mean, if he gets rid of the lurkers, this army can deal with the Hydralisks. And another lurker just kind of move commands its way through. There's another revelation. All the lurkers are revealed, but can he actually get through the rest of it? I think so.
I feel like those final 2 lurkers made things very complicated there for Gerald. There is only 1 more lurker remaining though, and that one does get cleaned up as well. But Zerglings have now ran into the mineral line at the 4th base. These Lings hurt, Nate. They've got +2 melee, they've got adrenal glands. But these are not Zerglings you can ignore. Just look at what's happening on the top side of the map. Elazer has taken another base with the Rich Vespian Geyser as well. This is some very beastly macro coming out of Elazer.
Yeah, we've got Lings headed to that 6 o'clock base you were talking about. There is no defense there. The Colossi are kind of moving in between the bases. That is another really nice thing about the Colossi. Of course, not only can they kill the Lings, but being able to kind of bounce between these 2 bases a little bit more easily. But now the Banelings are headed to that base again. This is kind of like what you expect out of pro level ZVP. It's just a lot of Lings and Banes going to get rallied to mineral lines while the Zerg builds up another force of Hydro Lurker. He's in the main, and those Lurkers are going to... Okay, it's just 1 Lurker this time. It's going to wedge itself into this spot again outside the natural. Several more Lurkers following up.
Elazer is playing at an insane pace right now, and I'm absolutely loving it. Lurker's just running into the natural. He's doing all of this at 95 drones. So it's okay if he loses armies, because he can keep rebuilding these armies. There are Zerglings still in the main because they won the fight. There are Zerglings running into the base at 6 o'clock as well. Gerald doesn't even know where to start defending this. And this is honestly some awesome play coming out of Elazer. Oh no, he's got no
the Colossi baited. Oh, well, that was it. That was the last really expensive army that he had. The disruptor that comes out immediately dies. And I think with that, we're going to be wrapping up game number 3 in a few moments here, Roddy. I'm not really sure what else there is to do. The south base is killed again. And GG is called. Elazer goes up 2-1.
I was just going to ask the observer to show us the income graph over the last, well, it's 10 minutes, right, that it shows. The entire line was a steady blue line. You don't see that very often, right? Normally there's at least a little dip or workers are bouncing. No, for the last 10 minutes in that game, Elazer was mining a solid 1,000, 12, 1,400 resources a minute more than Gerald. And if you have such a strong economy, it's okay to be a little reckless as Zerg, right? That's what Zerg is all about. Maybe some of those fights, it didn't seem that pretty, but it's okay. He's like, let's say I lose 5 units, you lose 6. Or, no, the other way around, guys. I lose 6 units, you lose 5. That's still better for me because I'm producing way more units than you are doing. And then, obviously, it wasn't all at the same place. There were always Banelings trying to run into the fort base. There were Lings being annoying at 6 o'clock all the time. Absolutely loved it. I thought that was a beautiful game by Elazer.
Yeah, no, really well played. I think, as you said, when you have that much economy overflowing, one of the best things that he could do is just, build 8 lurkers, just run them up, siege them in that spot and say, okay, yeah, you could probably kill this if you have a good army, but at the cost that you're not going to be able to put the money that he wanted to put into the late game investment, right? Like that fleet beacon was done at the end of the game, but he couldn't do anything with it. If you want to beat that really, really, really heavy lurker-based army, you're trying to get to, the kind of army that he had versus Lambo, right? You want to have a lot of carriers, well upgraded, lots of support disruptors. But if you're just using ground units against lurkers, it's almost impossible to trade cost effectively without the Zerg really screwing up big time.
You know what was fun as well? It's like the first time Elazer went for the majority of his, or with the majority of his lurkers for that natural choke point kind of there, trying to get into the initial 2 bases. I was like, why is this so important? But it really opens the door, and he kept breaking down all the static defenses that Gerald was trying to warp in there. Because if Gerald has like a wall up there, 3-4 cannons, 3-4 batteries, all of a sudden Gerald's life in defending becomes a lot easier, right? Because then it's just about that 4th base and that 5th base. He can just put almost all of his units there. And then he's like, no, we ain't having none of that. I will keep going for the natural to make sure the majority of your units have to come over here as well to defend this location. And that will open the door for the Zerglings and the Banelings on the right side of the map to do damage. And that was proper play.
No. Oh, and you say that, and he did it. He came in right as all of it was about to finish, too. He sieged up the 2nd or 3rd time. There were 3 cannons, 3 batteries. If the Colossi have that, that's super helpful. If I have to try to look for a little bit of like a bright spot in there in terms of the way that he handled those engagements, good control of the oracles. He was able to get good tags on the lurkers. He was able to take good fights, but it's just, you need to win so overwhelmingly that you can either counterattack and kill them, or you've already got 3 carriers building at once for the next wave. Otherwise, you're just throwing zealots and stalkers into lurkers, and lurkers are pretty good at dealing with those units. So see if this man can turn it around here in game number 4, spawning in the northeast, the Red Protoss player, Exxon's Gerald.
I'm smiling a little bit there because this man is the only Zerg player in the world that will look at 5 oracles and be like, nah, no need a spore crawler in the main against this build. It is Elazer. Just Miko things, Nate. Just Miko things.
Yeah. I think, I'm just going to go back to the Marine Lord interview. He's like, yeah, he's a bit of a gambler. So I think we're kind of seeing that, right? He's taking a lot of calculated risks in those types of areas. And Gerald, if he had yeeted those oracles into the main at some point, if he'd been able to get across and not just have his stalkers trying to pick off random overlords, maybe he finds that base. We see 10 drones die in a flash because we know 4 or 5 oracles are going to be terrifying. Then we can see things start to switch around. Even an exposed Hydralisk and getting upgrades is not the worst target to take if there's nothing there to defend that base.
And I'm going to be a really boring StarCraft 2 nerd right now because I know that we just watched a whole lot of awesome fights and some really cool transitions and macro. But for me, that game, I think the most awesome thing was truly the way that Elazer handled his economy in the early game. Skyrocketed up to 58 drones, only then made a bunch of Zerglings, and then used those Zerglings to keep the oracles at home. And it may seem that he's losing 12 to 14 links to kill 1 stalker. It's like, was that good? The answer is yes, because the oracles are not accomplishing what they are supposed to accomplish, and that is keep Elazer at 3 bases for, not forever, but at least for a little bit longer, right? Like, I think back of the game, that Gerald had yesterday on Ice and Chrome against Lambo on this map. How many cancels was that at the fourth base? That was like 3 or 4
Oh,
cancels.
yeah.
And Elazer was having none of that. He's like, no, those oracles will stay busy. Chase my Zerglings. Be worried I Zergling flood you. I'm Elazer. I make a lot of units. Well, not this game. He made a lot of drones, and then he made a lot of units. It's just really well done.
No, I mean, he capitalized on the opportunity, right? And getting that one Oracle kill too took a lot of the pressure off. I feel, even though he lost a queen, it's kind of like, well, Oracles aren't going to come kill you if you have queens under a Spore Crawler, unless you're playing against Haas, right? But in that situation, he's like, yeah, I can just kind of safely crank out drones here. Didn't really see anything to warrant that there would be like a big resonating glaive adept follow-up, right? Which is maybe your primary fear when you're that greedy versus a Stargate opener. Because we only saw that in the first game out of Gerald, and it worked very well for him, but it's risky to just try doing the same thing again.
Yep, it is still so funny though, right? Whenever we see Protoss players do like all sorts of wild builds, we're like, not really working, not really working. It's like, what about the glaives? And obviously there's so many different ways. Yeah, there's so many different ways, right? Like I know that some people will be like, oh, resonating glaives is resonating glaives, but whether you open up like 3-gate, 4-gate, or you go Stargate into glaives, like all of this is of course super different. And then obviously there's the glaives with the Dark Shrine, without the Dark Shrine, and all of it requires a very different response from the Zerg players, because these guys in general execute at a very high level. You see some funny things every now and then in DreamHack, but that's of course because the pressure is getting to these guys as well, which is normal. You play an entire group stage. This is the lower bracket of the playoffs. Your tournament life is on the line. If you lose here, it is all over for this season, and you have to wait until DreamHack Masters winter. So I think it's also normal that we see players slip up a little bit every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be. It's always going to be exciting to see also these types of games where we're not just watching two Titans go head to head. We've got a guy that's getting a lot of hype. He's getting a lot of love from the community, going up against somebody who's been a staple, right? Now, Elazer is a player that you expect him to be a bracket player, regardless of where you think he'll end up, right? You don't necessarily see him as the guy that's going to always be, dethroning Raynor or Serral. But you expect to see him, he's the kind of guy where if you get a good bracket where he's not going against, I mean, honestly, those two, he can go really deep. Absolutely.
I mean, it's funny that you say that because obviously that is true. But if anybody has been beating Serral other than Raynor, it kind of has been Elazer, right?
Yeah.
Did it a couple of those stay-at-home Surrey Cups, did it in the TSL as well, if I remember correctly. So Elazer is capable of that. But then unlike those two, Elazer does also lose best of 3s and best of 5s against players that the other two wouldn't lose against. Now, Nate, you know me, I get a little excited when I see double Stargate.
Oh,
this is triple
right.
Stargate. Triple Stargate immediately.
What does it mean?
Well, lots of Phoenix, I may assume.
So beautiful. Triple Stargate all the way.
Is it as rare as a double rainbow? I don't know. I mean, double Stargate is something we see quite often. I don't know if I like immediate triple Stargate. If you do, please get +1 air weapons made. Phoenix is attacked twice, so getting a +1 is basically like getting a +2. I really hate to see people build more than even like 4 Phoenix and not get +1. Like it bothers me, man.
Yeah, I'm a little triggered seeing that myself, especially considering that the primary unit that the Phoenix kind of has some struggles against early defense-wise, like if roaches or something come into play, but like the queens and the roaches both have 1 armor, right? So they're both pretty beefy versus the Phoenix if you don't get it. There it is. Okay, so waited a little bit to get it booted up. Maybe wanted to make sure that Lings couldn't see it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you have a very good point there. That's the only argument I have for not starting it immediately. You don't want Zerglings to run by your natural and see the Cybercore spinning. There are a decent amount of queens though. I think the right thing for Gerald to do is indeed avoid them for now. Don't fight those queens. Execute too many queens. Just go into the main base as well. I mean, Miko didn't have overlords against Spore Crawlers. Does have one, against 5 oracles. Does have 1 spore here, but 7, 8 phoenixes, Nate. They don't really care about a single Spore Crawler. 1 phoenix will fall. Not before 8 drones and a couple of overlords have gone down.
Yeah, I don't hate it at all. I think another thing that's probably worth noting is Elazer spread a pretty tremendous amount of overlords around the map over the course of this series, and a lot of them are going to die this game because of that. Some very exposed overlords. I know as soon as he felt like he was safe against the oracles in the last game, he sent he completely covered the southeast corner of Eternal Empire with those overlords. So Gerald's also just trying to capitalize on every little opportunity that he can. I love to see it. I think once those +1 finishes, if he's, you know, keep himself from losing too many more of his Phoenix, he's going to look for some opportunities to maybe jump on those fresh Hydralisks or Queens that are exposed and alone.
Yeah, I think right now the Phoenix count is definitely there to start fighting the Queens. Maybe you want to wait until +1. The only thing is you don't really want to fight Queens and Hydras at the same time. Like fighting one at a time is okay. Fighting both, that's where things become a bit problematic. Love to see the fleet beacon as well, Nate. There are a couple Hydras here and they are a bit by themselves. So that's -5 Hydras. That is a really expensive pickup. So wait, look at the units lost resource step. I mean, he just lost the Phoenix now, but
bold pickup on that last drone.
yeah. 2,800 resources against 700. I mean, pretty good start for Gerald, I'd say.
Yeah, and his fleet beacon's about to finish, so he can move into +2. We could see him start building carriers. He's got a little bit of money in the bank. Might see that down payment go in. Tier 3 air is going to need a lot of them to deal with Hydras, though. It's not as easy. It's not as simple as just build the carriers. You got to get them out, give them the time to get their interceptors together. And really, I've always felt like the carriers really become terrifying once you get that +2 attack upgrade with them, especially.
No, yeah, I'm with you on that one, 100%. +1 carrier is pretty good against Hydras without any armor, but if you can get +2 against Hydras without any armor, or carapace, as they call it with the Zergs, I think then you're gonna have a very good time. I am still a bit worried. Like, obviously, Gerald has done a lot of damage, but Elazer is a very experienced player. As one more Phoenix does go down. The moment that Elazer saw these Phoenixes fly over his Zerglings, he's like, all right, I'm gonna lose drones. I'm gonna build more drones. Like, every drone you kill, I'm gonna make 2 more. And Elazer has maintained a pretty steady worker lead throughout the last 5 minutes. He does have a pretty terrifying army right now, Nate, before those carriers are truly out and kicking. And we still have oracles as well. I forgot about those.
Pretty tremendous amount of stasis traps, yeah. And he does have some gateway units. We're missing, of course, any actual upgrades for those. Nothing has come out of that Twilight Council yet, but first 2 carriers have arrived. Number 3 will be out shortly. And I mean, 3 carriers, if Elazer was to, you know, try to put all the chips in and push on to that 4th base is dicey, I think, at best. But if he can get out another wave of these, and it doesn't seem like Elazer is ready to move out, he is playing this very close to the chest. He's going to have the opportunity to get that big, terrifying armada, as they call it. I don't like to use the word gold since they got rid of Graviton Catapult, but it's certainly an armada.
Yep. +2 is now on the way as well. I am a bit sad to see that he wasted a solid minute before starting that upgrade, especially because Gerald is building a lot of workers, by the way. Like, I'm used to Zerg players being at like 91, 95 workers in these kinds of games. Seeing a Protoss at 91 probes, Nate, that's I think pushing it a little bit, because you do want to have a proper army as well. Now the biggest army that Gerald can possibly have is 109 supply. It's good, but if you take into consideration that of that 109 army supply, there are 4 Zealots, 3 Adepts, 2 Stalkers that don't have any proper upgrades at all. I'm starting to get a bit worried, because then I feel your army becomes a bit crappy.
Yeah, I mean, if you can have some charge lots, especially against just a lot of Lings and Hydras. I mean, you know, we'll call into question how many Lurkers we end up getting or Banelings, but, you know, those Zealots, if they can get onto the Hydras, they're pretty good, and they're going to get the attention kind of pulled away from them, because the focus is going to mostly be on the carriers, right? If you just sit there fighting under interceptors and they have enough to kill you, and, you know, you're going to die without killing any of the carriers. So you need to make sure that you can get your units close enough. I think that's also going to be a big factor, is the Abduct, as we do have 2 Vipers on the map. I think the Oracles got wrecked.
Yeah, a bit sloppy, because oracles are nice to just keep track of the movement of the Zerg player. I was actually a bit surprised to see Elazer really rush into Lurkers, getting now all the Lurker upgrades as well. It's almost that maybe he was afraid of like Phoenixes into a big ground attack. That's not really the case. We don't have a Spire yet, Nate. I mean, obviously Viper, Hydra, pretty good against the carrier, don't get me wrong. But if you also have like Storm and maybe a Disruptor or 2 available in the near future, then all of a sudden, I'm not sure if this army of Elazer is really going to cut it against the carriers with +2 air weapons that will finish up in the near future. I feel that Elazer needs something a little better against those carriers.
Yeah, and this isn't just carriers anymore either. I mean, he's kind of hit the tipping point, right? Like we're gonna be at 9 carriers in about 15 seconds. And that is a terrifying force. This is not a, oh yeah, I can just, you know, grab all of them. It's like, no, if you're fighting against 115 interceptors at once, then you're going to be riding the struggle bus.
Indeed, a couple of Phoenix is going to lift a few of these drones on the bottom side. Obviously, if you...
So many spore crawlers.
Yeah. I mean, losing a couple of Phoenix is not that bad because you can replace them with more powerful units. Elazer seems like he's really going to go for it. And I know he's got a lot of spore crawlers, Nate, but I still feel that the carriers should be able to get a good fight, at least against the Hydras.
Yeah, I mean, the Hydras are right outside his base. He doesn't have the spore crawlers here. And unless he can get some really good initiating abducts, like that's really big. Okay, so one carrier just deleted. Now he has 3 abducts available still with those Vipers. And I mean, if he goes for the consume, right, he'll be right back up to 4. So the feedback's going to be extremely clutch to try and stop this, especially as the spores get closer to his base. The time for sitting around is about to be over. He's going to be forced to take the engagement whether he wants to or not.
A couple of Banelings are morphing on the top side of the map, and Elazer during all of this is going to try to roll these Banes into the mineral line. Static defenses will actually kind of save against the first wave, but more Banelings are coming in, and Gerald, this is not really fighting. There are more Banelings crashing into the third as well. Oh no, they've got +2, so they one-shot workers.
So many Banelings. Well, I feel like Banelings killing Progs is like one of the ways you can just describe PvZ in general, but I'm more surprised that 2 Vipers alone have been able to kind of stave off the interest in trying to attack, because he has 10 carriers, and as strong as that is, even if he kills all the Hydras, we're going to be back into the same situation as the last game, Kev. He's going to build 40 more, except instead of 10 carriers, there might only be 7. And there's a big storm going down onto the lurkers as they come out. Careful, because you are hitting your interceptors a little bit there. And there's a whole lot here to deal with as that Spore army continues to move forward. When you say the Zerg player looks like he might be maxed out, but you know, he's basically got 250 supply with 10 Spore crawlers there that are going to be blasting out tons of damage onto these units.
I feel like if Gerald wants to win the game, he just needs to fight, Nate. Drop a couple storms on those Hydras. I know that's a lot of spore crawlers and stuff, but he just needs to fight because he's taking way too much economic damage. Phoenixes can probably just lift a couple of units here. That really wouldn't hurt that much. And sure, the interceptor count is dropping, but at least Gerald is winning this. Banelings are crashing into another worker line on the top side of the map. The 9 more probes down. But just go. Like, if I'm Gerald here, Nate, there is no turning back. But just go. He's got such a monstrous army.
No, I agree. This is it. He needs to push the boulder down the mountain and let inertia do its job, because the only thing that's going to happen if he sits back is he's going to keep hemorrhaging massive losses to these Baneling run-bys. And no, I agree. I don't like him sitting here. I don't like this at all. He's got 165 supply. He's a little bit blocked. He is rebuilding a lot of interceptors, but now Elazer has all this time to get his forces back together, to raise that Hydralisk count back up, and he's got 9 more lurkers as well. So if he ever ends up moving out now, there's a lot more of an easy opportunity for him to continue to do that harass, put a lurker in a random spot, send it over to a mineral line, force the army back home again. You know, it doesn't seem like it gets any better for Gerald now.
Nope, I really feel like he almost missed the opportunity already. He can still win this fight. He has so many carriers. And the abducts, yes, they are scary, but you just shouldn't disengage. I really feel Gerald needs to pedal to the metal and let's go, mate. You've got a monster.
Don't let all the spores move.
Yeah, you've got +3 carry against +1 armor Hydras. Like, this is it. Even the spore crawlers are not that scary, but the longer he waits, the worse it's going to get. Elazer can eventually...
buff on producer. We need to just do it. Just do it.
Lands of feedback, that's big. And a couple of Zealots, I think, are harassing on the left side as well. Well, that won't accomplish anything. Just fight, mate.
You're gonna get speared if you do this. Yeah, he's just gonna spear out those units. Feedback doesn't kill the Vipers, man. They're gonna get that energy back real quick. Take it. Carriers are now starting to advance forward onto this army, and Kevin, that's a hell of a lot of damage coming out of them. The lurkers are gonna zone away the High Templar, but the Hydralisks on their own. I mean, that's a shit ton of carriers.
It really is. I mean, it's almost like we've been asking for that for a little while, right, mate? Like, believe in the carrier. You've got 14 carriers with +3. There is no moment to turn around right now. And look at Elazer's supply, Nate. He's at 20. I mean, he was sitting at 20 minerals, but he's got no more larvae. He's made so many Zerglings completely out of larvae. There's a disruptor in the mix as well. I love to see that. Elazer is pulling all of the spore crawlers that he has, but I still don't think it's going to be enough. These +3 carriers, they don't mess around.
Yeah, absolutely not. A tremendous force here out of Gerald trying to bring this series back to equilibrium. The hatchery is down. The drones are on the run. Hydras continue to pour out here, supported by a couple of lurkers and, spore crawlers. But Kevin, the carriers stand strong. 14 carriers still alive. None of them have died here. He is making just enough money to be able to rebuild those interceptors and take this game.